Are coffee producers owed a livable wage?
Oh,
Are they owed a
that's,
livable wage? Right? Like, go ahead, please.
no, I think that usually depends on how anybody approaches it. I believe that any human being is on a living wage, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but I think that going more specifically in coffee, I think that, you know, I think that yes, as a people, as a citizen, but I think that when we deconstructing, I guess that question is going more about what will need to be in place for that
Yeah.
to be good.
Friends, we have an announcement. On October 28, 29, and 30, Maple Forward is proud to present the first of its kind live online event titled Introduction to Regenerative Coffee Farming. This workshop will happen live in 3 different events in English, Spanish, and Portuguese to help coffee producers and the rest of us in the coffee industry understand regenerative ag and how to implement it so that coffee farmers stand a chance at surviving these brutal weather conditions long into the future. It will also help us understand how we can talk about regenerative ag to our customers. This live online presentation will be led by highly specialized and experienced agronomists, coffee producers, and agricultural engineers who have worked transforming coffee farms from conventional farms to regenerative farms and agroforestry around the world. Tickets are $10 for coffee producers and $150 for everybody else. When you pay $150 though, you're securing your ticket and the ticket of 14 other coffee producers that didn't quite have the funds to pay for their own tickets. Not only does your ticket buy you access to the workshop, but it also gives you access to newly formed WhatsApp groups, one in English, one in Spanish, one in Portuguese, where people can continue to exchange information and ideas about regenerative ag before and after the workshops. For more details, head to mapleforward.coffee/workshops. Check the link in the show notes for details and help us spread the word about this workshop by sharing our posts on social media. Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is unfortunately the final episode of what I think is a fantastic 5-part series with Miguel Zamora from the ICO. Miguel, I am so grateful to you for coming on and having this conversation with me. I have learned things about myself in this conversation that I didn't know and about my perspectives about coffee. So I'm always grateful for that. And I think that's the point of these conversations. And I hope that folks out there are listening to this and also questioning these things about themselves. Now, in this series, we're talking about a living income for coffee producers. We've explored a lot. And in this episode specifically, we're talking about the path forward to achieving a living income for coffee producers. Something we haven't spoken about, and I think is quite important right now in the industry, given what's happening with the C market, is pricing. So let's start the discussion there and the role that pricing plays, the pricing of coffee plays in a living income for coffee producers.
Yeah, I think that it plays a key role. I think that it is, can be a major driver. Again, it really depends on the situation, I would say. I was explaining earlier the situation in which productivity, a significant change on production practices will play a bigger role. For example, when farmers have very low density, very old trees, right? And there is a good amount of that in the coffee sector. I think that, but it's also would say that it's beyond price. It's about purchasing practices, right? It's not
Tell
only
me
price.
more.
It's the contracting, the when those prices are paid to whom, right? Like how long term, that is, the contracts go, the relationship goes, right? What tools the farmer, the cooperative, or whoever is helping the farmer has to really available to help, leverage, right? Like the financial leverage, like the working futures market, right? I think that there are a lot of other things that go together with the price that are, in many cases, as or more significant than price. That's a price plays a key role.
Yeah.
But, if you have countries, I mean, there are studies there that, the price pay FOB, right? Like, for export and how much the farmer actually receive, that really changes country by country and region by region. the farmer can have, going back to the case of Brazil, I think that it's around 88% in some places of the price. It's received by the farmer. That's high, right? In that those other 12%, it's actually a lot invested back, right? In taxes with the research center, right? So there is a return, the longer term for farmer with that. In other places, because of different issues, policies or inefficiencies, that percentage can be a lot lower, going to 70, and that is a key part too. With the same price, there could be like a significant increase there to what actually the farmer receives. So I think that it can play a role, it's a key role. But, as I was saying, right now we're seeing very high prices, considering, not comparing to, with inflation or anything like that, because they are still low, we compare to that. But even like with these prices, we know that it's helping many farmers, but it's not solving the issues of all of the issues, right? So I think that it plays a role, but I wish that it was as simple as paying a higher price and solving all of the issues.
First of all, sorry about that fire alarm that was in the background for anyone that heard it. Second of all, the thing is, I kind of want to ask you this question that I next want to ask by asking a very simplistic question. I always wonder if farmers who grow broccoli or bananas, a much more straightforward agricultural product, not as complex as coffee, experience the same challenges as what coffee producers experience. Felipe Croce was on the podcast recently talking about, he's a coffee producer in Brazil.
Yeah.
He was talking to us about how a soy farm can be run on much less labor than what a coffee farm is run on. And it seems to be a much more simplistic approach to producing soy than it is to producing coffee. So do producers of other agricultural products experience the same complexity? And I apologize for the naivety of the question. I just don't have any experience in that. I've only been in coffee. Do they experience the same kind of challenges as what we experience in coffee?
I think that in a way, yes. In others too, but farmers in general struggle quite a bit globally in many ways. I mean, to start is really hard work, right? And I think that we all can have an idea and relate to that. It is extremely hard work. That is not really quite well paid and rewarded or valued, but because in a way there is a lot of farmers and a lot of production, supply and demand prices remain low. I think that I worked, my first job out of college was in a banana farm. I managed a banana farm, and we have a lot of issues. It was a larger farm, but there was, issues around the community and the workers. There was a lot of situation that it was really challenging. And I faced their challenges directly that I've been facing coffee, right? Like a plane spraying, pesticides on my head and, in the head of the worker. So there are other issues. I mean, I don't want to badmouth the banana industry. That was over 20 years ago. Running a great ship now. But, they were, farming, there are other issues and similar issues, but it's a very complicated, especially when it is a commodity, which we tend to forget in coffee, especially those that are close to the specialty part, that a lot of the coffee is still traded as a commodity. And commodity means that you have the same for the most part, and it can be exchanged more easily. So that also tends to make it more complicated. So that's what efficiency is around the production, productivity, and really understanding that part sets you apart. Going back to the case of Brazil, they have a lot more and better information on that. At some point in Brazil, they decided that to be a coffee farmer, you need to have a minimum amount of land. And below that, you couldn't be farming coffee. And that means that you have farms. I have been to farms in Brazil, in which is the family, the farms, but they have a tractor. And they, and they harvest coffee with the tractor, and they bring it and they process it, right? It's a small farm for Brazil. It's a family farm. It's just the family working there, the harvest. But it's mechanized. They have able to make decisions, to understand how much fertilizer, the fertile irrigation, they have all of the tools to be able to do it in an efficient way. And we just think about coffee as a commodity. If they are competing with other farming in another region, they have a lot less land, they don't have the level of productivity. I mean, it's going to be very hard because the Brazilian farm is going to be able to be profitable with a significantly lower price per pound than the other farm. And that's where a little bit of it comes with in agriculture. As it is managed, there is a lot of that. That's why what we call niche market, but the specialty market, certified coffees, right? When they sell that story that this is different, and the consumer connects with that, right? At the end of the day, product is a bundle of different attributes, as economists will say. And if that attribute is like that special connection that you have to coffee and you're willing to pay more for that, that's why you have, you commoditize that product. It's not a commodity anymore, it's something special, and you can get a different price. Which, by the way, as ICO, we also try to work on that with countries. So they have governments can support a market strategy in the countries that allows them to take the most value out of coffee, which in some cases may include also, roasting at origin, having, a specialty, a strategy to go beyond that, because it's part of the solution at the end to get more value back to farmers from coffee production.
You gave me a thought I've never had before. So before I say this, I just want you to know I'm grateful for it, because I've never asked myself the question when it comes to coffee producers, and this is going to sound very strange. I'm warning everyone who's listening. Are coffee producers owed a livable wage?
Oh?
Are they owed a livable wage? Right? Like, go ahead, please.
No, I think that usually depends on how anybody approaches it. I believe that any human being is on a living wage, right?
Yeah.
But I think that going more specifically in coffee, I think that, I think that yes, as people, as a citizen, but I think that when deconstructing, I guess that question is going more about what will need to be in place for that to be cool.
Right. That's where I'm going with that, is the idea that I hear a lot of people saying that people should be enabled to make a livable income off their land. I don't disagree. But you got me thinking about the idea that if Brazil says if you want to be profitable in coffee, you need X amount of hectares, you need to be growing this much coffee, etc., less than that, it's not profitable. Well, then that's just like any other business owner. You need to make a challenging decision then. Do you stay in coffee, or do you find something more profitable to be farming in? Nobody is, because we live in, and this is the dark side, I guess, or the reality of capitalism, is if you're growing something and you are commoditizing it and you are turning it into a commercial endeavor, if it's not working for you, no amount of government intervention is going to make that profitable, right?
I think that you can say no amount of price would make it either, right?
Yeah.
Nothing like less or real price. And I think that, it, of course, it's a complex question, complex issue, because then what, right? The assumption, in economics, some people will tell you, you free the labor and they can find a better, use. There is a lot of assumptions there that is going to be
massive assumptions there.
But that's the assumption that many economists make, right?
Yeah.
I've seen that. Then again, why an approach that is thoughtful about that and that tries to find alternative is what it will be needed. But not doing anything either doesn't really help.
Right, exactly.
Not doing anything about it keeps on saying the next year is going to be worse. And the situation, and we keep on going back and back to the same problem if we analyze and go further and really try to make the with data the decisions, there's not going to be a way in which that farmer will be profitable from coffee. I think that of course there are cases like that, right? But then what? What do we do then in that case? How do we support? And who is going to support? It's going to be the government. Nobody else. I mean, maybe civil society, right? Together try to support that farmer. So if he or she wants to make a different decision about what they farm, they can have access to that. If there are other opportunities for their children, they have access to that, right? That other environment needs to be there, because if farming is still not profitable, but there's not a better
An alternative.
it's going to continue to do, because there's nothing and that's a rational decision, by the way.
Yeah.
Be to do the thing that makes the most sense for your situation. Even though it might not be profitable, you have to figure out things. But what else are you going to do? So I think that the what else, that is where, you will need large international organizations supporting, you need governments for that situation. But going back to the things that have worked, in Brazil we saw that those decisions help to create, a different reality for coffee farmers. That meant that some farmers, when they pass their farm to their kids, it didn't go to two of them. It went to probably one of them, because otherwise there's not enough. And those kids have to make a decision. I buy you out, we work together, whatever that is. But then again, it brought to a different reality in which a lot of coffee farmers are profitable. They can live from the land. They can have now a political power too, because they're having more of that presence as, the rural sector in decisions of the government. It's a completely different reality of what we see in other places. So in the other places, that are also making a lot of progress. No, it's not only Brazil, but I just like to use that example because I spent a little more time there and we have been able to learn. And in coffee, there are also more examples available if you speak Portuguese to get that information, what has happened, what is there. And they're honestly very open to share it too, which is great. So I think that's, again, using as an example of what can be with the right support.
EUDR is a very interesting intersection between government and coffee producers that is quite complicated, because when Pedro Manga from Caravella was on the podcast, I think it was last week or the week before, depending on when this airs, but I really learned a lot about what EUDR is trying to accomplish. I was quite surprised. The reason I was surprised was because I came out of that conversation a little hopeful for EUDR. I think that it has the potential. I'm not sure if it's going to achieve that potential, but it really does have the potential to hold a different future for Europe and coffee. And if it is successful, it could really change the landscape of coffee. What is your perspective? You decide if you share that perspective from the perspective of Miguel or from the ICO or both. But are you hopeful about EUDR? Do you think it's going to help producers have a more livable income, sorry?
Yeah, I don't know about the income part, but I think that, and then I have, yes, because they are our members. The European Union is our member. And and we understand that they, as a sovereign government, have made the decision around EUDR, and also there is like a great, reasons behind that, right? We know deforestation, and we also know there's been a lot of challenges in the implementation around the information needed for people to comply. The idea has always been that the operators in Europe are the ones who have to comply, but a lot of that, unfortunately, as we could have suspected, goes down to the farmer to have to, and farmer organizations and local governments to have to comply with that and pay for that compliance. So for us, it's a very tough topic because we have some producing countries who are not in favor, let's say, of something like that, because of the challenges in the implementation. Not because they don't want deforestation, but because they feel that there's not enough clarity to implement that, and who's going to pay for that. And it is a law that is there, but as a farmer, I have to comply with this. But what are the benefits that you pay me more for that? Why do I have to pay?
They bear the expense of the due diligence that's required.
Right. There is sort of like, You created the problem. Consuming countries, what do you have to pay for that now, right? Thinking of the climate crisis. So I think there are a lot of positions that are valid. I think a lot of the positions are valid. I think that, we all agree, going back to the consensus, we all agree that deforestation is not it's something really bad. I don't know on a personal level how much coffee is risk puts deforestation, should be considered in that group when you compare the other products in reality. The information that is coming out from, and this is different examples of people who are, monitoring this, is that in coffee farms is really small, the issue. So having to go through all of this for potentially if all of the products that are involved in EUDR, the less risk one, that's also a little bit of a challenge. So for me, but going back now in my personal point, I have seen this from my experience in the last years. When regulations happen, companies act. When I was living in the United States, I saw that when, there was this Trade Facilitation and Trade Enforcement Act. Sorry, I got confused there. That passed, I think, 10 years ago, 14 years ago, when President Obama was in charge, and he passed Democrat and Republican House in Congress, which never happened because it was a tiny little thing that say coffee cannot be produced by, slave labor. And it was a law from the 50s, and coffee was an exemption, but coffee wasn't an exemption anymore. This has no impact. Pass it, and the law passed. In reality, that moment when that passed, I saw companies, because we work with a lot of companies back then with UTS, which is another certification in coffee. A lot of companies starting to act to have, to monitor risk, to do impact assessments around the issue of forced labor, which with a tiny little, they saw that as something serious, so they started to act. I think it helped, it worked to bring the issue of farm workers, not even like forced labor, which is my very rare in coffee, if at all, but the issue of farm workers up front to coffee that it has never been before. But I think that regulations have a huge potential when well implementing, and there is a lot of actually happens that to make a lot of impact around sustainability issues. And I think that we are seeing that experiment right now with EUDR. I think that the next weeks around EUDR are going to be very important to see what actually is going to happen. But then after that, it comes, the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. There are a lot of other laws in specific countries passing too that relate to either issues for human rights or issues of deforestation, that I think that has a potential to for sure to change a lot of the practices that we are seeing, not only from the farming perspective, but just in general of purchasing, of trading, it has a lot of implications also for the amount of work that farmers and everybody in the supply chain has to do.
Miguel, this has been an exceptional conversation. I am really grateful for this. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I hope you enjoyed the discussion. I really loved it, and I hope that you'll come back. So
yes, happy to. Let's see what your viewers, listeners say. But
I'm sure you'll hear from some of them. It may take them a minute to get to you, but
it'd be nice to hear from people that I haven't heard in a while. So if you know me, just
say hi. You'll hear particularly from the ones that you know.
Good. That'd be nice.
Where can people find out about the ICO and connect with you?
Sure. ICO.org, that's the easy one. And then from there is a lot of information. We have a global knowledge hub with a lot of the information that from the studies and all of the work that we're doing on the task force goes there. The ICO website has a lot of official documents that I don't know how much you will be interested in, but the task force part, with all of the things that we have discussed, you can find that there. And you can get in touch with me. My last name is Zamora at ICO.org. And I'm, always I love talking about coffee. I love coffee people. My favorite, people, agricultural wise, but just in general. always happy to talk and, anytime about these topics. And if you want to get involved, I think that living income, I hope that for farmers, I hope that is one goal that we all can get behind. We can all argue about the best way to do it, this and that, but I think that as a principle, if we all
We're united on that, for
we can
sure.
get united and they have different ways to achieve it, but make that a goal of the industry that by 2030 or by X year, we want coffees, the farmers were there to be profitable, to have a dignified life for them, their families, and their children. If we can get behind that and measure progress and hold people accountable, which is important, we can do that together. I think that's very significant. Then we have something positive in which we all were working together for the benefit of coffee farmers.
Is your task force open to hearing from people who want to engage in discussion about this, or you just are interested in hearing from governments and big corporations?
And we have had a lot of spaces like that at producing country level. When we give these studies, we invite a lot of stakeholders. They come at different conferences. In the past, we have had moments in which open to the public, come and bring your issues. We have presentations too, in which we try to get that. So we are open always to answer questions when people want to get involved. There is a lot of work happening. I was putting the example of Mexico, to have a plan to close the living income gap. If people are buying from Mexico, there's a way to figure out how you can get involved. If there's another origin that you're sourcing from, we can try to connect and see how you can play your part on that too. And there are other origins that you may not purchase it from, but I think that everything that because we're intergovernmental, everything that we put out is for the public to see. So and we're open to receive feedback.
Great. Miguel, will you do me the honor of signing off this series for us?
Paz, amor y manteca de maní.
We've never done it in a different language. Peace, love, and peanut butter, folks. Have an amazing rest of your day. That was awesome.
Bye.
Bye, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, friends. Please don't forget to show us some love by subscribing, liking, commenting, and most of all, sharing this podcast with your friends. Check the show notes for links, including our sponsors and our Patreon. And stay tuned for more great conversations on the Daily Coffee Pro by Map It Forward.